Hello everyone, I would like to show you how to set up your Raspberry Pi, and for that, before we start looking any at the hardware, it will take a little bit of time to download this. We go here, for example, we search for Raspberry Pi. That should get us to the Raspberry Pi Foundation here, and then we check on the software, and you download the software installer for the operating system you have. So I have Windows. I download Windows here. It'll take a little bit of time. See here. And this is the imager. I can open that imager. Yes. Raspberry Pi imager. I probably have it already installed, but that should not make any difference here. And then we run it. Okay. So that got installed pretty quickly. But the main thing we need to do next is actually download the operating system and get that installed on our Raspberry Pi. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so we have it running back here. Right, we can choose device. And what you have is a Raspberry Pi 4, all of you. The operating system we want, there's a whole bunch we can select from. I think this semester we'll go with the 64-bit version. And now we need to put this onto a storage device. And give me 1 second for that. You will need to open your box. And let's see whether we can find it. Okay. This guy here, right? I want to run the Raspberry Pi off of a flash drive. There are other options, but this semester I'm using a flash drive because it's a little faster and I believe it's easier to install. Okay. So I take the flash drive, right, and insert this into my computer, my desktop computer or my laptop. If you only have micro USB or USB-C, you will need an adapter for this. So I inserted it into my computer. I'll click here on select the storage, this guy here. Right, so I'm installing operating system for Raspberry Pi 4. I'm installing Raspbian, this operating system, 64-bit version on my SanDisk. Please make sure that this is exactly the same name, because if you install this onto your hard drive of your computer, it will no longer boot. So it has to be this USB SanDisk, or however it is called on your computer. Okay, would you like apply OS customization settings? And we say here yes. So we edit the settings. And so now the first thing we want to do, we want to have set the host name. So you can put in here your own name or whatever name you want the computer to be called. So let's call this URSPi. URSPi. You can set your own password. So first we'll probably change the username to whatever I want to, and then I will set my password. Okay, let me do another screen. Okay, I set here, and now we can set the wireless network. So the one I have at home is this one here, but if you want it to connect in the laboratory, you could write here meddev, and you can put down here the password, which is, let me think about that. So this is the password, right? Wildcats, but you replace the 1, the I with a 1 and the A with an 8. Let's see how this is gonna go. Wildcats, so password, okay. We're in the US, so we find the US on this list somewhere. You could already see the default was GB, Great Britain, because that's where the foundation is. PQRS. Oh my god. US, okay. And then you probably want to set the time to Phoenix, keyboard United States, and that's it. So now it will be able to connect to the network in the lab. Later you will be able to add networks at your house or wherever you want to use it. You can also use hotspot on your phone and so forth. Let's see what services we have here. Enable SSH, that we need that to remotely log in. Okay. What other options? Play sound when finished. Yeah, this does not matter. But this SSH will enable us to remotely log into the Raspberry Pi. Okay. This is all we want. I save these settings. Would you like to apply customization settings? Yes. All existing data on my drive will be erased. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Okay, and now it's going to go. So this will take a little bit of time. So while this is taking its time, let's take a look what we have inside of our box. Okay. Let's open the box. We don't need the solderless protoboard. Maybe later you need the patch cable. Right. This goes in one of the Ethernet ports and the Ethernet port of your desktop. If you don't have one, I have an adapter for you. This is display cable. We don't need this today. We don't need the cobbler today. We see this later. We don't need this either. So let's take the parts out that we might need. So I take this out. Maybe we need this adapter. I definitely need the Raspberry Pi. Right. Many of you do not have it in a cardboard box. So let's just take it out. That's the Pi. And the power supply. Many of you will have the power supply just out. That's the two. So we take all these parts out. Raspberry Pi. Then I have here a few screws and nuts. Let's take these out too. Little hardware clock. We can take this guy out too. Little cooling fan. And that's all the parts we need. Okay. So right, it's still riding the operating system. I'll show you on my camera briefly. It's still going. So let's take a look at all the parts we have here. This is our power supply. Right. Do not run Raspberry Pi off the USB port of your computer. This needs about 2.5 amps. And you need a power supply that we'll list here. This guy here delivers 3 amps. Okay. This is our Raspberry Pi. This is the machine we will work with. I will explain to you what's going where. I showed you that we will put a USB flash drive here to boot from it. Usually people put an SD card in the back and boot off the SD card. They cost more and are slower. That's why I use the flash drive. If you want to boot really fast, you could buy something like this. Right, and we can plug this in instead. Or you could buy something like this. This is an external drive, solid state drive. You could use to boot too. You don't need this. We will get all of you one of those battery devices, so we can use this for power. And power on the Raspberry Pi would be hooked up here. We will not power it on until we have everything configured. Right. So one of the things you can see here is that everything is exposed. If you drop screws on here like this and you power it up, there's a good chance it will fry. It's even worse on the back side. Right? If you drop anything on here that is conductive, or you put this onto something, or your jewelry falls on it, it can really destroy your Raspberry Pi. Okay, so it's still burning the software. So this is actually a hardware clock. This device does not have a time. So if you want to, you can try to put this in here. Right. Later on we will try to read the time. This is nothing else than a clock plus a battery, and I have wrapped this in electrical tape to not make a short. And while it's still burning the software, there's a small thing I like you to do. Right? So take these apart. You could do something like this. Right? So now we will have a standoff. These are called standoffs. At the front, you put the big one on top, and the bottom, the one that has 2 threads, 2 holes at the bottom, or you can also invert it. You might get some of those screws. And in the back, later we will need to attach here a cable, so we cannot mount this here because there's not enough space. But you can take this off here, right? And we put this in at the bottom. Let me second here. Okay, so I have troubles holding this. So luckily I gave you one on these pliers. They're short nose, so we can put this in here. Okay. Okay. It's writing, it's at 92% at this time on my computer, so soon it will be done. We put this here too. Okay. It's fighting me today. Okay. Okay, I have this attached. So later, it's verifying the writing. Later you will produce this as a protector, a plate. You will measure the hole size and how big this needs to be. Right, this I already made previously. And this we can attach at the bottom. Okay. So I took out all the nuts, and luckily we also have this little screwdriver set. So we can put this on here, like this. Okay. Right, you will not have this yet, but in one of the next labs we will have introduction to laser cutter, and you will learn how to make it. If you want to design it, if you already know how to use a CAD program, you can look up dimensions on the specifications of the Raspberry Pi, or I will show you in class later. But this at least protects it at the bottom, right? It can still fall in between here and on the top. So we also need to make something that goes on the top here. So I put this away for now. Okay. We also have a small fan. Some of those pins here are 5 volts and ground, so we can use this to cool. It's kind of weird to have this dangling around, but one of your assignments will be to make a holder for the fan, so it can be attached, for example, on the side here, and cool your Raspberry Pi. Right, the Raspberry Pi 4, if you really have a lot of work on it, like video encoding or some computing, it can actually get quite warm. So this is your processor, this is your RAM or your memory, and there's some additional input-output chips I will explain at a later time. So let's see how it looks like with the writing. So it's finished. Raspberry Pi OS has been written to the USB stick. You can now remove the SD card from your reader, which I will do here. Okay, and I can continue. Let's take a look. So, right, you see the black ports and the blue ports. This is, I believe, USB 2 probably, and this might be USB 3. and if you have red or other colors, it might be 3.1. So on other computers, so these ones here are significantly faster than these ones. So this side here, you would plug in a keyboard, whatever you want to plug in. So this one, right, goes here. Okay, and in order to boot it, today I will be using the battery pack beyond here. So now how we're going to take a look at the Raspberry Pi, the screen, what is going to happen. So if you're lucky, you have a display, and you could attach DisplayPort. And I'll show you different options. So DisplayPort would go here, right? So this is the micro or mini HDMI, and this is the larger HDMI. Let me see how I can do this. So I will be attaching monitor cable here. Okay. And you either use this power supply with the USB-C adapter, or we are going to use the battery pack. Okay, we'll plug this in here and see what is going to happen on my screen. So on the Pi here, you will see things flashing, this location, and then you will see Raspberry Pi booting up. Okay, so let's give it some time. It will automatically convert the whole flash drive to 16 gigabytes. The operating system is only about 2, so it has to expand the drive. That's what's happening now. So at this point in time, you definitely do not want to unplug anything. Right? You will see back here that the lights are flashing. That means it's reading and writing. One of them is on, and the green one is showing disk access. Do not unplug during that period. Okay. So now we can see things moving along. And this will take a little bit of time. So I will stop recording until this is finished. Okay. So I think we're almost there. It's trying to set up the keyboard. I have no keyboard plugged in. We'll change this very shortly. Oh. Few more seconds and you will see the screen. It usually will not take that long. It takes that long because it's the first time we're booting. Okay, and we are here. Awesome. So to show you how you could actually use your mouse and keyboard. Right, I have here my mouse and keyboard. I can plug them in over here. Okay. Now I have a mouse to move around. You can see up here, this is where it would show the network. If you are lucky at your place, if you're in the lab, it will already be connected, and if you're at home, here, and I will click to my home network and type in my password. See? And that should do it. Now I have here a flashing network symbol. This looks different than a Mac, right? There is nothing at the bottom. There is nothing at the where Windows would have its connector. Okay, now it wants me to do this again. Okay. So the way this actually works here is on the top right and top left. That's where your menu is. You will become familiar with this. The Earth symbol is your web browser, this is your file browser, and this is your shell. We do quite a few things on the shell. So you click only once, right? You will learn how to operate this. ls for list of contents. And often the first thing you do is updating the operating system. Sudo apt get, let me see, I forgot already, update. Sudo is super user, apt get update, right? So now it connects to the Raspberry Pi Foundation servers for updates of the operating system. This is operating system Bookworm, and it tries to get a list of all the packages and update the packages and see whether we have the latest ones. So this is just downloading the list of new packages, what's happening in the background on your Mac or on your Windows machine. And then you can actually do an upgrade. Right, and let's see, what does it tell us? Okay, there's a whole bunch of newer versions of libraries, so we can update this, but this will be explained in a future setting. So this is usually how I get it started if I have a display. So now I will try to show you how to do this if you do not have a display. So for setting up the Raspberry Pi without the screen and keyboard, we can either connect through the network, the wireless network. This might work because when you're connecting to the wireless network in your house, it's probably just you on the network. In the lab, and 20 or 30 other people are connected simultaneously, it will get a little slow. So I would like to show you how to do this with the Raspberry Pi and this patch cable, right? So this is a network cable, a wired network cable. You can plug this over here, right? And right now none of these LEDs on the bottom here are on. That means it's not connected. And on the other side here, you have another plug. If your laptop has a plug like this, you plug it in directly. Otherwise you get an adapter like this one. And in my case here, right, the only USB I have left is USB-C. So you can, for example, get an adapter that goes from USB to USB-C. Plug this in, and let's give me a second. I'll plug this in the back of my laptop. Okay. Now the question becomes, is this properly connected? Is this working? So you're finished with burning operating system. I go here to control panel, my computer. On your Mac, you somehow need to figure out how to see what network ports you have available. In here, I go to Network and Sharing Center, and I go here Adapter Settings, and I can see here this is my connector. This is my USB connector. We have two different types in the lab, and it actually says it's already connected, operating in 1 gigabit. So let's see, because if this is connected, right, it's just a Raspberry Pi and my computer, so there is no identification or anything, so it will search for it, but it's not necessary to make a one-to-one connection. So right now I should be able, on my desk camera, right, you can now see there are both lights on, and the one that's flashing showing there is activity on the line. Okay, so now I have a direct connection to the Raspberry Pi. So I can go back to the desktop. There is no internet access, no network access, because there's no router or nothing on this one. But we should still be able to use it. So let's see. I can close this, and I can open the shell. Windows PowerShell, for example. On your Mac, you can just open the shell. It's already has all those features in it. So remember, we gave the Raspberry a name. So I think I called it SettingUpPi. And if I type here local, this should go through. So this is now connecting over this cable that goes to the back of my laptop. Right, and on my laptop I see the output of this connection. Right, it said that it had 2 milliseconds to get to it, go to it. So now we need to remotely connect to it. So hopefully you remember the username you used, because the command here would be ssh singer at SettingUpPi.local. Okay, so whatever username you gave it, whatever name you gave to your Raspberry Pi is what you need to use, and the .local says that it's only connecting to the first possible connection that you have on this wire. And it says here it wants to have a secure connection. So the first time you do this, you say yes. And now I need the password that you also set up when you burn the operating system. And now you can see I'm on the Raspberry Pi here. This is my Raspberry Pi. Right, this is all the files on it, the things we've been working on. So now we want to set up the ability to connect to the desktop remotely. Raspi config. Let's see whether this works. No, it says you need to be the administrator. That means you need to put sudo super user do in front of the command. Now it gives you a whole bunch of options, and the one things we want to set up, you will see all those options later because we want to better configure the Raspberry Pi, but we will need to enable, I think, the interface options. I want to enable SSH. It's already enabled, otherwise you'll not be able to connect. We want to enable VNC. Would you like to enable the VNC server? We say yes. Right, and so it's now generating ability to remotely log into your Raspberry Pi in case you don't have a display. Okay, it just did it. Let me see here. And since we're in here, we want to enable some other things too. SPI interface is for sensors. We can enable that one too. Some other interfaces, I2C, we want to enable also. What other interfaces are there? Serial port we will not need in this class. One wire we will not in the class either. Remote input output we don't need either. Right, I'm just using the keys, up and down arrows on my keyboard. There is no mouse here. If I move my mouse around here, I can click wherever I want. Nothing is happening. Right? You need to use the keys on your keyboard, up, down, left, right, as well as the enter key. Now, so go back. Display option. Let me see system options. Right, I already set this up. Display options, VNC resolution. So this is the screen resolution we want when we log in remotely. You won't want the screen to be bigger than your laptop screen. So let's put in here something like this is good for me. Okay. And I do not have a 4K display, so I'm not interested in this. So I think we're good for now. The rest we will show you another video and other instructions for another lab. So let's go finish here. And now we say we want to reboot. Okay. So now you saw that it closed the connection and I got back to my original shell here. This will look very similar on your Mac if you have a Mac. Take some time to reboot so we can actually check whether it's up. I can, for example, do here ping. If I ping it, it says it's up and going. If I get a reply, that means I'm ready to connect to it again. So let's see whether we can actually connect to it with a remote desktop connection. 1 second. So in order to remotely connect to the Raspberry Pi, you need a program called VNC Viewer or VNC Virtual Network something. The real VNC implementation is a good one. I think Raspberry Pi Foundation works with them. You select which computer you want. Cookie settings, okay. I want Windows. Real VNC Viewer. It's downloading. You don't need to create an account or anything, and you only want the viewer. You don't want the server. Right, so we can install this, and once it's installed, I should be able to write down here VNC Viewer. This is my app. And again, sorry it's so small, but here is your Raspberry Pi hostname, not your username, and I put .local. If you were on the wireless network in the Salter lab or at your house, you can also go wireless, and it would not have a .local, it just would have the name. Right? UrsPi would go over the wireless, and .local goes over this single wired connection I have between my computer. Okay, so I click enter. We are lucky, it found it, but it says it needs to have security authentication, so we say continue, connect to it, invalid username and password, okay, so I need to figure this one out, give me 1 second. So I previously had a server installed and it was cached, so I deleted it. Let's try this one more time. Okay, still invalid password. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Now it is giving you the ability to type in your username and password, which you already have done. You can click remember. Okay, and it will connect to your Raspberry Pi remotely. Right, you can make this big. Okay. This is exactly mirroring the display of the Raspberry Pi to a desktop. It's pretty decent. Sony is a Python interpreter. And you can load programs. You can browse the network and so forth. Okay, let's see whether the web browser is running. Here. I think I by mistake clicked twice. Let's see whether this is connecting. Okay, and we are going. So this is using a version of Chrome, but it's Chromium, which is the open source scaled down version of Google Chrome as the browser. Different networks here. You can set up additional ones if you want to, Bluetooth and so forth. This is Unix operating system. Theoretically you can just plug the power, but if you really want to do this nicely, you click on shutdown and the machine is disconnecting, and this is what it is. So we should have here at the bottom a pre-configured setting. If I click on this again, give me a second here, if I click on this again, it should try to recreate the connection, but since we turned it off, shut it down and now just restarted, it will no longer be powered, so you have to replug the power. And make a desktop camera here, right? You have to take this out, put it back in. It doesn't have an on-off switch, and now it would start again. And then after a little bit of time, we can try to connect to it again. And it's probably not up yet, so we can try here again. Ping. No response. Try a few times. Okay, it's still flashing, so it means it's going. Okay, it's up and running. So now we can try this again. It's just because I was impatient. And we will be able to get back into the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so VNC server has not started yet, so we cannot yet connect, but very shortly we'll be able to. Okay. Yeah, it's still flashing. The light's still flashing, so it means it's still booting up. Oh, this is not the same one. It's the SettingUpPi that we had up here. Give me a second, maybe we didn't save it. SettingUpPi local. This one here. Okay, and we're back into the Pi. Okay, that's for it for today. Thank you. Hope to see you soon. Bye.